Hi, and welcome to the Spiritual Principles Made Practical podcast. Today, we're very fortunate to have Xandra Hawes with us, who is a psychotherapist, psychic medium, and she interweaves Buddhist psychology, spirituality, and energy healing. That's fascinating. Tell me about how the Buddhist psychology and all of that stuff fits together.
Yeah. I didn't realize when I was becoming a therapist, like how the massive trajectory of therapy would become pop culture, but also Buddhism in itself is becoming more pop culture. And so a lot of people have these ideas of what they are, but if you can like hang with me on like a metaphorical level or even like an imagery level, it's kind of like Buddhist psychology at the core has this principle that's called like basic goodness or brilliant sanity. And it has a picture of like the great Eastern sun, right? So it's this beautiful sun. I call it soul. They don't necessarily call it soul, but it's sort of when you're working with someone from a Buddhist psychology standpoint, it's really holding this high awareness of like who this person is, that they actually have everything that they need, that have innate wisdom, they have amazing inner direction, right? All that stuff. And they're an ancient being. This is not seeing people on like a multi-life perspective too, though that person doesn't need to see themselves like that. And it's looking at and witnessing all of the we call it neurotic, right? All these neurotic tendencies, not necessarily diagnostic based, but I like calling it neurotic. All of these neurotic, usually thinking tendencies, doubt, emotional things that are the clouds that get in the way. And so it's working with someone to really discover and rediscover who they are, but it's from the capacity that they have everything they need. It's very different than old psychology, right? That's like, you're the patient, get on this couch, right? I'm going to offer you this like wisdom, then you're lacking everything. So it's very different around seeing people as just amazing, really, and that they have what they need. We're just working together to help them figure it out.
Right. So it's about you helping them connect to themselves and facilitating sort of drawing that out of them.
You got it. Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
Well, one of the big things that I and probably lots of other people have are centered around kind of two things that were in your list of things that you address. And one is overcoming obstacles, and the other is finding our life's purpose or our life's journey and stuff. And so could you kind of dig in there and if you don't mind, I'm gonna jump in and interject my own questions about myself as we go along, because as I told you a little bit earlier, I'm a big believer in example is the most powerful form of leadership. And so I'd like to be an example
Mm-hmm.
of how it works with you.
Ooh, I love that. I love when people are like, ooh, I agree with this, or ooh, I don't. So please share your experience, interweave. And I'd be curious to see if you resonate with some of the terminology, because I think some of these words I might have made up. So we'll have to hang out when I'm explaining it, and
Well,
everyone else
so
can
so
hang
far we're batting 1,000 because I totally believe that everybody has all the wisdom that exists within them. We are
out.
we are
Perfect.
absolutely on the same page there.
Well, I think a lot of the like obstacles, right? Manifestation is so huge. You got everyone out there being like inspiration, life purpose, path. There's so many people starting to like have this percolation in their space around like, what would it mean to do something that I love? And if I'm not doing what I love every day, right? Does that mean I'm doing the wrong thing? There's all of this stirring up, which I love. But it brings people at this sort of intersection of responsibility versus inspiration in a way, right? And then
Yeah.
there's the resistance of all the humany things. How do I do what I love? And how do I make money? And how do I do that? Because there's all these people on Instagram with like saying they have everything they need and it doesn't feel like they work every day. You know, how do they do that? There's all of this like fluff, right?
Right.
But if we like come down to like the core energy, even of like manifestation, what no one seems to talk about that I run into that often is that the idea of manifestation or like infinite potential to create what you want is so based off, and this is the word that's not real yet. It's all based off of people's havingness or their ability to have larger frequencies in themselves, their ability to have what they really want. And having means like I can hold that frequency in my space with 100% worthiness, no self-doubt, no fear, no, I hope this happens. There's true knowing in the body. And so what happens is that a lot of people have this idea of what they want, or they have a hope of what they want. And so it's almost like they send a telepathic text message to the universe, like, oh, I would love this. I would love that. And the universe goes, oh, awesome. How much do you believe you deserve that? You have 100%. This is your dream, 100% in it for your dream. Okay, now let's look at your havingness. Let's look at your worthiness. Let's look at your ability to have that frequency. And then everyone goes, okay, well, I hope I'm trying. I'm trusting myself. I should be doing this, right? All the shoulds, or I'm trying, or I'm doing, start coming out. And I love numbers, right? As a wooey person. Oh, my partner's an accountant and an astrologist. So we love numbers and stats, and all these things. And so I'll ask people, I'll be like, all right, this is 100% of your dream. Close your eyes. I want you to imagine like a speedometer in your car, or like a scale, and say, like, what part of you, what percentage are you at in terms of your havingness or your worthiness for this? And rarely are people at 100%, that they feel like they're fully worthy, deserving of that. And that's when you get into shame. That's when you get into self-doubt. That's when you get into trauma. And the universe is like, oh, we want to give you this. Cool. But it looks like in order to get this, we got to heal all of this. And so you get up to 100%. And so people get these like, I'm asking for this, but all I'm getting is trauma releasing. Like, what's going on? And I'm like, it sounds like you're doing it right. It sounds like you're getting it.
Boy, that's me.
So what's your dream? Or is there something that
So my dream, okay, and my dream is to be able to be a sought after consultant to world leaders to help them accept their wholeness and have it reflected in their leadership.
Ooh, good words.
So that's my dream. And then when you said your worthiness percentage,
Yeah.
3%.
You're at 3. Oh, we got some work to do. Okay. That was quick. That was quick. Okay. And so the 97%, if we use you as example, right? And we
Yeah.
break it down, it was like a pie chart. So we got 3% is like, woo, I'm in it. I've got it. I can do it. What's your pie chart? What else is in there, if you don't mind sharing?
Who am I
Ah,
to do this?
okay.
What makes me think that I could actually pull it off if I even got the opportunity.
Ooh, I'm feeling
Um,
even what's the tone of it? Like, what makes you think? Like there's like a kind of like condescension, or like a judgment, or something else in there.
yeah, it's like, I mean, you're nobody special, but you think you want to and are capable of doing something that would be like hugely special.
Ooh, okay. So if we take the perspective of like that's not your core self,
Right.
what seed is that from?
A lot of it, I don't know. I mean, the best I've been able to trace it back is childhood stuff where, um, you know, uh, my younger brother had a lot of challenges, and I was the one person in the world that he got along with better than anyone else. And so my mom kept pressuring me essentially to do more and more stuff with him, and I interpreted that as is like, well, I don't have any really, what I want isn't important. It's
Oh, okay.
I'm not, I'm not here for me. I'm here for other people, and what I want isn't all that important.
Ooh, okay. So here comes like the martyr kind of energy a little bit of like I put other people first, or like this is my role, like I'm
Yeah, so
appreciated in
like in
this.
my marriage, it's like my wife wants these great things, and I go, well, great, because I'll get them for you, and then we'll share them, and then I'll have them, because I would never do it for just me.
Ah, okay. That's fascinating. I'm holding the energy with you of like, I really strive to help guide people back to their wholeness, to their authenticity, to people that have power, plugging back in so they make good decisions. What's interesting is I can even see the layers in it around like when I'm serving other people or helping other people, that's when I feel most valued too. So I also wonder, part of the goal is also serving others again. And so it seems like what's missing is like, what's the joy that you get from being in that, not just like helping other people, but really expanding your joy about like, what would it feel like to be so inspired, connecting with people, like feeling your vibrancy, feeling your innate wisdom from this life, from multiple lives coming through, and like holding that havingness in yourself and like growing it so that it's not selfish. It's actually you. It's actually plugged into you. I'm just feeling into the energies
Yeah. Yeah.
that's on.
So two things. One, I do thought coaching with people where basically the whole concept is that the more aware of your thinking you are, the more it improves. And if your thinking improves, then the rest of it goes along with that.
Mhm.
And when I finish a thought coaching session, I'm like feet off the ground. I mean, I'm just, wow, I'm firing on all cylinders. I'm happening and stuff. And or when I give a speech, I gave a graduation speech to a bunch of high school students that were all part of a at-risk group.
Mm.
And I gave this what I thought was this amazing speech. I mean, I said part of the speech was, as I said, you family members that are here supporting your graduates, I says, make sure that you have them tell you the story of when they made a decision that resulted in them being here graduating today, as opposed to being on the street, so that they can take ownership of that power and that ability and that decision and its ramifications. And I mean, and stuff like that. And I was like, my feet didn't touch the ground for like days after that. I mean, I was just like, oh my God, this is so great. I can't believe it. So it's basically those kinds of uplifting things
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
really, float my boat, so to speak.
Yeah, I feel it. It seems like what you're saying is a lot of the helpers and the healers, right? There's so much energy of that we get from being in service and helping people see themselves, right? So there's that amazing interconnected sort of moment, and it's hard to balance having a love of that and, right, it's almost like a water fountain. There's this like joy in giving the fountain out and like plugging yourself in so that the water comes in and kind of evolves at the same time. It's hard. It's super, super hard. And that's kind of the hard thing about manifesting too, is like 100%, excuse me, worthiness to receive the energy that you also want to put out as well. It feels so tricky.
Yeah. And that's an area where uh, I don't feel particularly adept
Uh,
at opening up to, well, it's hard to explain. Uh, I'm great at it in terms of my meditation and the books I write and all of that. But in terms of feeling worthy, it's always been like, didn't make sense. The problem that was there didn't make sense to me. I thought, I've got all this to share and I've got all this wisdom, and when I get an opportunity, people get better and they thrive and stuff. And I'm doing it on a microscopic level to what I'm inspired to do.
yeah. 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 I mean, it's a noble cause, right? In a way, there's like
Yeah.
this sense of like, I'm giving, I'm offering, but yeah, I wonder what it'd be like. I wonder if there's like, and we can talk about certain practices to get your 3% boosted up into the 10 or the 20. There's different energy tools. Like some of it can be mental in a way, but some of it, I'm always super curious about how much work we do, like with thinking, like, okay, if I just think about it this way, if I work about it this way, and it's like, there's so much to it. And then also sometimes I get people that are like, how do I can trace this back. I know it, right? I can tell you the story, I can do the thing, but how can I not release it from the body, right? Like, how do I actually get it out of my space where there's not that energetic programming, right? In the nervous system, in some of these spaces too. So yeah, there's lots of different things we can do. But if I imagine if we could get you up to a percentage that felt better, it doesn't have to be 100. What would you want to rock?
I mean, 30 would be amazing.
Ooh,
It'd
okay.
be 10 times where I am now.
Ooh, okay. Yeah. 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 And maybe like, maybe helping all of these folks in the world, maybe it comes in a couple years versus in 10. Cause even when you said it, I was like, oh, good. This is going to happen. It's just, does it happen in a couple years or does it happen in 10? Does it happen in a different way? that it seems to manifest.
Yeah, I mean, I'm open, I mean, it's happens however it happens.
Yeah. 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 Well, I think what thing you're bringing up too, at least that I can feel like kind of calibrated in my space, is like beyond havingness, like worthiness is really around the topic. And it feels like, and I don't know if you have this experience, but so many people that are caregivers, healers, helpers, teachers, first responders, there's that same pattern of kind of overdoing sometimes in a way. And I think, again, this is not a term. If you Google it, you might find something about it. But one thing that I see sometimes in the havingness realm, or when people are manifesting, sometimes it's called undercover codependency. A lot of people know codependency, but the undercover kind is the kind that I find among, and I'm saying this like as like I'm raising my hand as I'm saying it. It's not like, oh, these people, I'm like this is also me, so I can talk about it too. But there's what's called undercover codependency, and it means that throughout your life, if you trace back and you think about all of the different relationships you've had, whether they're romantic, whether they're friendships, and you feel into the people that you've chosen, people that are struggling with undercover codependency are usually the healers. But what happens is that they've been programmed so much to value their worthiness off of helping or healing other people that they actually pick people and they pick relationships where they go, oh, you look like you really need help. I feel really inspired. And I know that I can be of service here. And so it's a way that the helper is actually codependent on the other people needing them or needing healing, because then it validates that core essence in the self. And so you'll find these like trajectories of people
That
immediately that you call in.
that is 100% me.
That's 100. We got 100 there.
That's me.
That's
That
you.
that's me. Finding people who are that I feel are worthy of greater support and help,
Yeah.
and that by supporting them, they'll make a greater contribution to the world than, I mean, not that they aren't already, but it will be, but they have so much more potential to do even greater contributions to the world and want to, and I want to support them in that, and I seek those people out like a magnet.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Yeah. I'm literally the part where I realized this was happening is I live in Boulder, Colorado, and there's like a thing called Pearl Street. It's like a brick mall area. And I was like walking down the street, having this amazing day, sun is shining, right? Got like chai latte, whatever in my hand. I'm walking back from lunch. And on this street, there's all these people walking down. And all of a sudden, you can tell there's like a server or a line cook or something that's clearly taking a break. And they walk out of the restaurant and they sit down and they put their head in their hand and they light up a cigarette. And all of a sudden, my heart just starts doing this thing. And all of a sudden, my brain goes into this whole story of just like, okay, how busy am I right now? Maybe I should sit down next to them, like, la, la, la. Like, should I do energy work? It starts racing into all the different ways. Like, okay, how many people are in my program? Like, like maybe I could support, maybe I could give them, la, 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 like all this stuff. And I was just like, wow, right before, right before I tapped into their energy field, right? That deep empathy, right? A lot of people have that too, that are the helpers. And I felt it before I could even witness that being and actually say to myself, wow, this person looks like they're really struggling. I can feel in my field. How do I hold the trust, the true spiritual frequency that they are powerful and they absolutely have everything that they need to heal themselves? They have everything that they need. And if I don't hold that frequency, if I have to help out of seeing them as wounded, like I couldn't hold that frequency. My brain would totally go into fixing. And I was like, okay, this is about me. This is about me and what I need for me. Even though it comes off as I'm trying to help this person, there is that like morality and those values. But I was like, wow, I don't always see people, even though I know people are whole, my body reacts to people as if they're not whole when I can feel their sadness, their anxiety, and things like that. And again, this might not be you, but that was the moment I had of like, wow, oh my God, like I'm becoming a therapist. Like I can't do it like this. I can't do it because I'm going to energetically absorb from that place. And so Buddhist psychology kind of taught me that, like, okay, like, yes, look at, you can see beings with all the clouds, but like, what if you cut through, and what if you don't try to fix? And that was like hard energetically for me to not try to transmute people's spaces, right? Or like, you're in the cashier line and you can tell the person's really sad, and immediately I'm like, how can I ask them about their day? How can I like brighten it? Like, immediately I'm trying to shift their field, but it was never from this full sense, 100% of this person has exactly what they need. And that's what I sort of work on in that healer space. You might be at 100 where you're like, no, I can do both, but I struggle with it.
Yeah, for me it's in my better moments, which frankly are most of them, is I really, because I bought in so heavy into that example is the most powerful form of leadership. I say, I need to be in a deep, loving space around this person. That's what I need to resonate. That's what I need.
Yeah.
And that's what I need for me, and that's what they need, and that's what everybody needs. And so I'm pretty good about um because my wife is not well, and so there's a lot of opportunity there for me to do my best to be peaceful and centered and open, and bring that energy of joy and acceptance and peace, um, to our relationship and such. And yeah, I mean, and sometimes obviously I'm better than others. But overall, I the majority of the time I kind of maintain that sort of space. And because I realize that um, getting in the tug of war, right? So if somebody's angry at me, getting angry back at them is a losing proposition. So I learned that a long time ago.
Yeah. 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 So it sounds
So
like you can hold your frequency.
yeah, so I'm pretty good at that, and sort of the big picture, like, because I talk to my angels all the time, and the big picture is that they said, look, all you have to do to maximize uh, everything that's good and valuable in your life is to not turn away from the light. Don't give up on yourself. And that, and it'll there'll be bumps and bruises along the way, but just don't give up on yourself. And I had one circumstance that I very clearly gave up on myself, and it took me 3 years to recover. And I made a vow to myself at that point that I would, and I knew just intuitively that if I ever made that mistake again, it would be much harder to recover then than it was the first time. And so I said, I'll give up my corporal being anything not to go through that again. So I'm not gonna, I'll be like the Monty Python guy that has all his arms and legs cut off and is still like trying to get it done, right? So I'm not going to give up.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm just feeling into that, like that theme too that you're saying, right? Of like, I'm not going to give up. And so much part of the podcast today is like removing the obstacles that make people give up while they're manifesting, right?
Yeah.
And so I wonder, was it helpful? Maybe we have a conversation too if it feels good. It sounds like you have certain practical tools on the thinking level, but I love that you brought angels in too, because I work with them too. And it's a magic thing. And I'm just curious if you can share your experience of it. We can do practical tools on these things, but I think of angels being practical in some
Yeah,
ways.
absolutely. Absolutely. It's well, uh the one that comes to mind, it was I was, financially in a really tough spot. I had sold all my investments and I'd run up my credit cards to the max, and I said, God, and angels, if you want me to be on the street, I will, but I'm not going to turn away from the light. I've already done that. I'm not going to do that. And they said, well, they said, go and see your parents. And I said, well, I'm in my 40s. What do my parents have to do with this? And they said, you want our help or not? They said, just go. And I said, well, I don't even know what I would tell them. They said, you don't worry about that. Your job is to get yourself there. It's okay. They only live half hour away. I could do that. So I get there and this energy comes over me. And I tell you, my experience was that I was outside of my body, watching myself speak, listening to myself speak to my parents.
Mm.
And the energy was, I left with the sense that there's no human being in the universe that could not resonate with that energy. It was that powerful. And in the space of, I don't know, probably only 15 minutes or something, I don't know. I mean, time was like, who knows where time was.
Mhm.
Uh, I healed my relationship with my parents. I didn't ask for a dime, but they gave me a check for $100,000. And I didn't ask for a penny. I didn't, nothing, you know. But, and I just, you know, the relationship and things that they, you know, and it was all about, you know, and I had never looked at it this way, but this huge string of promises that they had made to influence my behavior that they had reneged on.
Mm.
And I'd never really thought about it much, you know, until that moment, you know.
Mm.
And but it was just um and it left me with uh, the knowledge and belief that no matter how bad it is, if I don't give up on my, if I let my angels help me and guide me, that they can, they and me, and that all kind of gets sloppy for me as who's who, right? You know, it's like, you know, if I'm one with all things, then I am my angels, and on, right? But nevertheless, that by not giving up, that I, no matter how bad and tense things are, if I open up and refuse to give up on that light and following that direction, that um, I'll be able to express the energy that creates the resonance that solves the problem.
Mhm. 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 I'm taking it in. I'm taking it in because I know it's
And,
words that you're saying, but it's a frequency too. And I hope it's resonating through people that are listening to it as you're saying it.
I mean, and I was, and at the end of it, I was soaked with perspiration. It was just like the energy coming through me was like, whoa.
Yeah. Yeah. It kind of reminds me of like sometimes when people get really caught, like even manifestation, right? There's this mental, I have to like think so much about it, but it's almost like receiving. It's almost just like really, really opening to receive, to know that we are so loved and supported. And so it's that deep listening and opening. And who knows if it's our higher self or this beautiful angelic guide, right? Or you from the future, you from the past, or whoever. But there's something so magic about what happens with deep listening. And I feel like you're speaking to probably the core wound that happens for a lot of people, where so much of the trying to figure it out or trying to do everything, or where the fear sort of comes from. And it's a really hard line to like open, listen, receive, not overdo. And so I think it's such a beautiful example of being able to, like, when you're so achy around having to do and be, and you just opened and something bigger came through. And I feel like that's such a practical but loving thing all at the same time. You just had to receive.
Well, I mean, it completely changed my life because I never experienced energy of that intensity before.
Mm.
I mean, never, you know, and nothing will ever convince me that any being anywhere could not have resonated with that. I mean, it was that strong.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I love that your parents, I love the like in 15 minutes, right? Like healing, like that higher resolution, the higher soul connection beyond the personality, beyond the fear, beyond this reality. There's so much more we can tap into, but it's really hard to be at that place to be able to open. But it sounds like you were like, I'm desperate. I tried everything else. Like, let's go. Like, okay, I'll make the drive. We'll see what happens. It's a lot of bravery.
And so I'm trying to open up to that level of energy without
Mhm.
sort of being forced into it by trauma, so to speak.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
So
I
I
know.
know that level of energy is available, is available to me, however you want to say it, but that I'm capable of experiencing it and expressing it beneficially.
Mm,
And I don't want to have to and I want to remove the obstacles to that as smoothly as possible, because
yeah.
I don't really want to go through the pain and suffering part if I can avoid it.
Ooh, that's the one thing I wonder. I don't know if you hear about all this too, but there's so much coming out about 3D and ascending into 5D. Have you heard of all of this
No,
trajectory
I
stuff?
haven't.
Okay. It's becoming, I think it's going to become a bigger thing. And there's a lot of like an intersection of conflict about like the earth shifting to a fifth dimensional planet, meaning fifth dimension is sort of this spiritual way that you're talking about where you're connected in with your higher self and these higher frequency beings all the time. There's this collective beautiful heart opening channeling consciousness, and people would call that the sort of fifth dimensional space of being in that realm. And so there's a lot of people that believe like 3D is like the old frequencies of the body of learning through pain, suffering, like more negative reinforcement, like changing out of pain and suffering. And so some people will say like, hey, you can actually learn through joy, inspiration, letting go, releasing, but it being beautiful and not having to be this like healing is this like never ending, like digging the hole to China, like layered thing of like, and another thing my parent did wrong that I'm not trying to blame them for, but is in my system. And another thing, right?
Yeah.
All the things. And so I honestly think energy work is just so huge for helping the system run these bigger energies that you're talking about, but giving permission for the body to let them go. And maybe it doesn't mean that we bypass the achy part, right? Or the tears, but there's a way of holding it with tenderness and holding it with resonance and holding it from this higher level of like, I see the bigger meaning in it, because it feels like the poverty mentality that we have around it is what keeps it stuck. So I wonder if there's a middle way of like ascending, right, to that higher consciousness level of being, but you don't bypass what's happened in life, but you also don't take it personally either.
Yeah, so a couple of things. One, my angels told me, they said, what you don't know is how much suffering you've avoided by
Ah,
through your meditation and stuff. And they're always kind of on me that, I don't give myself enough credit for what I've done and accomplished and grown and stuff. And so there's that piece of it. And and I really do um, sort of on the other side of the financial thing, there was a time when I, had just a huge influx of money, and I meditated on, well, what can I do with this to bring more light, and I bought solar cells for the house, and but it was like, uh, and recently I've said, geez, if I had unlimited funds, um, I would pay people in prison to complete a meditation course, and then
mm,
track the recidivism rate from the people that took the course as compared to the general population, to show the government that it's actually a money-making thing to pay people to, to pay inmates to complete a meditation course,
ooh,
and it's like, and if I, and if I had unlimited funds, that's one of the things I'd do. Another thing I'd do is I would track, I would track meditation against healthcare costs and
yeah,
longevity and stuff. And it's all about, and my understanding of meditation, what I do is listening, and it's the receiving part. So,
yeah,
you know.
yeah.
So I don't know why I'm rambling off on that one, but I feel like I'm happy when I have the tears, because I know that's when the release is taking place. So
Mm.
that's not a problem for me.
Oh, I'm holding space with you. I can feel it, all the different layers.
And I wrote a postcard one time for marketing a business I had, and I talked about my dog died, and I said tears came from places I didn't know I had.
Mm.
But what was left, but what was left was peace and the knowledge that just because my dog died doesn't mean I ever stop loving her.
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
And um, so I'm trying to open up to receive,
Mhm.
like what you're talking about. I just like to get better at it.
Oh, of it just being easy, of like the opening.
Even if it's hard, that's okay. I mean, I just want to be more efficient.
Yeah.
I want to be better at it, right? I want to be able to. Uh, so I vacillate between these various energy levels, right? And so in some of them, it's like, oh man, I'm plugged in. There's everything's nothing could not work, from this state, and I'm confident that, I'll absolutely rise to whatever challenge comes my way, and I know it's true, and I'm solid. And then it's like the other is like, I got no clue where to go from here.
Oh, and some of it too, because you seem like you're sensitive, right? And you're empathic and you can feel all the layers. And so even when you're talking about it, I'm just like, ooh, I wonder if this is also where the deep compassion comes in too, because you have it in yourself. And so you can see other people that deep in that space too. And that's why you're like, I see you, I've got you, I understand this, I have my own experience. And I feel like that's part of the biggest part about being a real teacher, right? Is like knowing and understanding. And so now you've got that part. And now you're like, okay, how do I maintain this deep connection all the time to the higher self? And it sounds like it's happening. It sounds like it is. There's just like, it's a little like the rusty door opens like, back and forth.
Yeah, it's happening, but it's like I said, I'd like it to be smoother and more efficient,
Yeah.
and yeah.
Can I throw something silly out here?
What's that?
Can I throw something silly out here?
Absolutely, please.
I always wonder, like when I'm hearing you say it, people are always like, I want to be able to like move it through, right? Or I want it to be more in flow. And whenever people say that, I always wonder, like, how are they moving the body so that it flows through? Like, I was just like, do you do movement practices to help things flow through, like to kind of help the energy through? Because meditation's awesome around the sitting.
I did yoga this morning, and so
Ah, okay.
I do
Okay.
that, and then I play a lot of tennis, so
Nice.
I try to keep my body like plastic enough that it can make the physical changes that it needs to make to be in concert with the energetic changes that I'm making.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
And so sometimes I'll have these like cathartic releases where it's like I'm sobbing,
Mhm.
and I can almost feel like parts of my body letting go and sort of aligning more to where they should be.
Yeah. I wonder if this could be something to play with then if you've got the movement practice. Like if you're going to rock your yoga, right? Slow flow, vinyasa. Some people go for the hot sweaty, all the different forms.
No heat. Uh,
If the intention, right? A lot of times when people get on the mat, it's the intention. If you say something like body in the most loving, kind, tender way, I would love for you to be able to let go of whatever we're holding that gets in the way of this dream. I'm ready. It's okay. You've got this. And just letting yourself flow through it. And whatever starts lighting up that needs you, if you're doing the flow and all of a sudden something comes through, you hold where that pain, where the energy comes through, and you just meet it. You meet it in the same way that it didn't get met when it was trying to come through in the first place. And so you just hold its hand and you just walk it through, and you use your amazing meditation practice to just breathe with it. And you just start walking it home to the angels around, like, okay, we're going to walk you to this higher level of healing. And they're going to bring that to the next part. And so you just listen where body is saying, okay, I'm getting in alignment with you. I know the mind wants this. I know the heart wants this, but I took these battles on. And so yoga can bring it up and through, but you don't have to work so hard. And you just touch, whether it's the jaw, right? Whether it's the back of the head or the spine. You just breathe and you allow that higher self part of you to just walk it home. And you don't have to understand what it is. You don't have to go into the thinking, but just such tenderness and sweetness. And I've noticed when people are flowing through, the body is so wise. Like it'll show you exactly where it is. And so it just becomes that sweet meeting. I just wonder.
I will absolutely do that.
Yeah. I'm just in my mind, I'm like, how can we have you not work harder? How can we have you like interweave something that's already there, but just bringing in beauty into this? Even when you're talking, I'm just like, I feel like we got to bring in more beauty, that like open, panoramic beauty, that wisdom of all knowing where everything gets held in that greater vision. Because it feels like it's possible and it feels like you're meant to be in that space. You just got to walk those parts of you home.
Will absolutely do that.
Mm. Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, yeah. It's sometimes people want the practical, right? Like the list of the 5 things, or I just need to go running more. And sometimes it's like the practical is like, how do we do less? How do we not have to work so hard? How do we just like soften? It seems like so many people are afraid to soften because they're afraid of what's there, but so much of what's there was never really ours in the first place. It's just programming. It's just like old things. And so it's
Right.
just like tenderly working it through, you know. But it's hard. It's hard unless you slow down. I don't really know when people speed up that you can see things more clearly too. Maybe you can while you're playing tennis. Maybe you could try during tennis. Seems like it'd be a lot.
No, I think I'll leave that to yoga I can stop and hold, you know.
But
It's
have
like,
everyone pause before you serve.
I have something else to do. So like, can you take like a 15-minute break while I take care of this?
Yeah. 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 Just lay down in the middle of the court, put the tennis ball on the heart, and just be like, I'm just going to be here for a second. If you could just grab a water break.
Actually, I have one person I play with who would actually understand that. So.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Okay. There we go. Oh,
Uh,
oh, yeah.
so yeah.
Yeah. Mm. I'm just sitting in it with you. I'm just sitting in the sweetness around like the obstacles from, you know, getting your percentage up. You can even tell body like, hey, like when we get to the end, if I was at 20%, what would you need to release? And you can feel into it and be like, ooh, okay, that feels like a lot for one yoga session. What if we rock 8%? Can you imagine if every time you did yoga, you bumped up 3 or 4%?
Oh, that would be awesome.
You'd be up 15% if you did yoga every couple days in a couple weeks all of a sudden. And so it could become this like practice of beauty versus like another layer I have to do, like another, you know, meditation or another medicine ceremony or another this. It just becomes that like sweet releasing. I really as a therapist in the Boulder area, there's so much about therapy, but like plant medicine work and a lot of like those aspects. And though I think they can be really helpful for some people, this like purging process, I also really wonder like meeting things with tenderness, like meeting things with love, like meeting things with that openness, rather than needing to like rip something out of the system. I think we all have different ways we want to work with that, like velocity and speed and things like that. But it's really practical just to go slow with these things.
I would much rather do that, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm thinking there's a lot of people that I see um, that are trying to manifest big things. And I don't know if you're one of these humans. You were talking about if I had the money, right, to do these things. And it made me smile because there's a program in Boulder that the undergraduate students, a lot of them volunteer at Naropa University. There's a prison meditation program. And so people will go teach meditation. They're not paid yet, but I love that aspect of bringing something like that in. And I was just thinking about like if every single person, yourself included, listening to this podcast that's like wanting to create some sort of program or like wanting to give more away, if they had 100% havingness for like, I deserve that amount, like what our world could do. And for some reason, there's always this like, well, this person needs it. And I'm just like, whoa, this person might need it, but you're the one that's going to get it and you're going to give it to all those people. Like, we want you to be the person with the money. We want you to be the person that wins the lottery, right? I was sitting in a room of people one time doing a lecture, and I said, how many people in here would like to win the lottery, right? And like 98% ish, it was a spiritual conference. So I was like, maybe only half, but 98% of people, right, raised the hand. And I was like, sweet, keep them up. Like, how many of you think you are the best person in the world to win the lottery, right? That's havingness. Oh man, they all shot down real fast. There was one person in the back that slowly, they like kept it up, and then they realized no one else did, and they put their hand down. I was like, oh no, 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 you had it. You had it. And so I pointed out and said, like, tell me about this. And he was just like, he kind of held his hand. He was embarrassed. And I was like, no, you're the only one in this room that's got it right. And he was like, really? He's like, I was really embarrassed because it made me feel really selfish, like, and I was like, oh, okay, tell me about that. Right. And he was saying, he was like, I just, he's like, I know that I just want to give it to our world. He's like, so I just want to, he's like, I feel stressed about where I would do it and how. He's like, but I just, to have that much, everything I could do to love on other people. He's like, but I thought maybe like, well, I'm not the smartest person. So I put my hand down, right? Maybe someone else would be more organized with it. And I was like, it's not about organization. It's about heart. It's about that. And so that was the havingness, right? That like deep, deep havingness of like, we want you, we want everyone listening to this podcast, we want me, we want everyone to get financial loving resources so that we can start putting them deeply into our world. And so for all your people listening to this, it's checking in on your havingness of like letting yourself have 100% havingness for resources, for abundance, for those things. Because if we all had them, there would be like people that were in prison. Maybe our prison industrial complex would disappear. Maybe people that are in jail and prison get paid to do meditation, and they come out and they get to actually reform their lives, right? I just can't even imagine. I feel it with you. Like, it's possible. It's possible, but we
Oh,
need
yeah, I
people
mean,
to
I
let
have, I mean,
go.
I have a flood of ideas. I mean, I mean, you just take this concept that example is the most powerful form of leadership, right? You could take people that like were, in poverty and horrible situations and work them way out of them and give them the microphone to this, like, tell your story, tell your story. We're going down to Skid Row with some speakers and you're going to tell your story.
Yeah.
I mean, stuff, I mean, there's all kinds of, stuff like that could be done.
Oh yeah. Right. And so many people are like, I can't figure out my life purpose because what I'm inspired to do, I'm like, I don't know if it exists yet. I can't tell you how many people are looking for life purpose because they can feel everything that they don't want to do. They're like, I look around and I can't see myself wanting to exchange my energy for this. And I'm like, I wonder if what you're meant to do isn't here yet. And so your dream, right? 100%, but havingness isn't fully there because it's not quite here yet. And so you're learning the lessons around getting yourself there, right? Like there's a man I was working with, just amazing, right? Tech person, can train people, coding. There's back end, there's front end. I'm learning things as I listen to him, right? I'm like, oh, there's a back end, there's a front. Okay. Like, knows all the things. Amazing with coding. And we talk a lot about AI and like what's sort of coming and like the battle between all of that stuff. And we talk about how one of my spiritual teachers, she's very, very wooey. And she was talking about how I asked her about AI. I said, do you think it's possible if humans have a soul, can a soul take an AI body? I was like, do you think do you think a soul would choose? And she said, no. She's like, but AI can be really conscious. Like, there can be a consciousness because if it's made from the earth, there's a certain level of consciousness that's going to be in it. She said, but AI takes the imprint of the person who made it.
Right.
And so she said, if AI is made out of love and tenderness and for our world, she's like, amazing. That's what higher level civilizations have already done. She said, but if it's for greed, fear, destruction. She said that's when you have to be careful about what you're promoting. And so we were talking to my client about like, well, what do you do as a person in the tech industry that is learning about AI and sees it as such an amazing thing, but is trying to hold a high level of frequency and consciousness? And he's struggling without a job because he's like, I can't promote this industry. And we were like, okay, I think you're going to create something. I think you're going to create something that's imprinted with a lot of love and a lot of tenderness and a lot of kindness, but it's not here yet. And so this is like the dreaming in, but at the same time, he's going through depression, anxiety, lost a parent, went through heart surgery, right? All of these crazy things that are happening. And so his havingness is low for it working out. And so he's working through these trauma-based things. So it's hard on these different layers and levels, like helping people hold the higher purpose as we're working through all our human things. But he's learning energy work, and he's learning how to let the belief systems go, like we talked about, with a lot of love, meeting them, like slowing down versus like, going on Google and applying for 20 different jobs he doesn't care about that are not going to lead anywhere. Right.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. So I wonder how many people are stuck, right? All the obstacles to manifesting, to life purpose, to things like that. I wonder about if we can let the pain go. Are we ready for what's actually possible? Like, is there actually so much more possible if we can let it go with tenderness? Can the angels come in? Can they guide us to different things? Can we channel ideas from our future self? I love this topic. I'm not going to go into it.
Well, that's right. I've got one that's further out than that, so I will talk about next. And you can tell me how crazy I really am. So I was reading through spiritual literature, and I came across the prayer of Saint Francis. I mean, obviously it was interpreted and stuff, but at the end of it, it said, "In dying to self, you're born to eternal life." And that phrase just grabbed hold of me, like I just was amazed. And I said, I need to know and understand what's going on here. And that this was, I don't know, decades ago now, actually. And and then I just realized that, like on my email, it says, leading global acceptance of the fact that we're one. And I've been working so much on trying to understand what it means to be one, and one with God, one with all that is. And I'm kind of learning about it. But one of the things that is part of that, in my understanding, is that all concept of time disappears, and that and there is no separateness. And and so in my coaching, I help people identify times when they were present and allowed their inspiration to be expressed without any inhibitions, and how that those were uniformly peak experiences for them, and that they could do that and stuff. But they were in that present moment. That's part of oneness. So I'm still kind of, at least I'm able to help them identify and relate to the fact that they are successful at focusing on the present and allowing the inspiration to flow for everyone, including their benefit. And that, they've done it. It's not something that they might be able to do or have to learn how to do. You've already done it, and now all you have to do is one of the tenets of my growth is the concept that the most efficient way forward is to have a greater acceptance of what's true right now. And so, and so we talk about it. It's like, how much of the time am I present right now? And if I can honestly, accept that, or how much do I believe in myself, or what do you call havingness? Okay, well, you know what? If I accept that I'm at 3%, then that enables me to do something about it, you know?
Mm-hmm. The word, when you were talking about like guiding people back in a time, my brain was like, like islands of clarity, like just like clear seeing where time, we're not defined by all these different things. There's like these click in islands of clarity points, and like harnessing that energy, kind of like coming up for water, like, whew, okay, here we are, like stay connected to that possibility in a way too.
So I'm working a lot on trying to just be present more, you know, because I understand that that's an integral part of being one,
Mm-hmm.
and that and there is no, you know, and I was I kind of look for things in language that will help me communicate, and one of them is like there's no self-consciousness when I'm one.
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking, well, I'm not conscious of being separate, and it's like, no, there's no self-consciousness, there's no there's no, you know, inhibitions of anything.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Mm-hmm.
just so I'm, you know, I'm always trying to figure out how to make it practical, you know, how to employ it.
Yeah. Even as you're talking, I think there was there's this, like, if you can picture this like classroom, a lot of like seats, zabutons, like everyone's sitting on the floor. It's like a beginning Buddhist psychology class, and there's this woman, and she has fire engine red hair, right? She's in her 80s. She's been at this school for 50 years, right? This like woman dressed all in these black robes. And so even though she has this small structure, she's just like this fire of light, and she's the instructor, and she's standing up there lecturing away, like barely 5 feet tall, just like, and she just croaks out, I just wish people were willing to be more stupid. And she just like kept going. And I was like, okay. And I like raised my hand because I'm like, wow, she's fierce. I don't want to question her, but I just want to like know what she means. And I raised my hand and I was like, can you help me? Like, here we all are in graduate school learning how to be more intelligent, supposedly, so that we can help people. And yet you're saying you wish people were more stupid. Can you, my brain just disconnected, like what's happening? And she was like, so she said, like, from an Eastern perspective, like, she said the opportunity to be stupid means there is no self-consciousness. If you were more stupid, she goes, think of how many things you don't do because you're afraid of what people think, if they're going to judge you looking a certain way. People go, well, I don't want to look stupid. I don't want to look, so I'm not going to do these things. I'm not going to like ask for something. I'm not going to take care of myself. I'm not going to admit a mistake. There's like, I don't want to look stupid. She said, so just think about how many things you would do if you were no longer scared of looking stupid. She's like, can you imagine the freedom, right? Because we think of like people that are willing to be stupid as being uneducated, right? Or like there's this idea or projection that this is someone who doesn't know what's going on. And so I was like, okay, how do I practice this, right? So similar to you about like staying present, working on self-consciousness. I picked 3 groups, like a women's group, 3 different events where I was like, I know nothing about this. This is a group of people that get together, super afraid to look stupid. And in like the opening circle, they're like, why are you here? And I was like, I am here to work on being okay with looking stupid. And that's all I said in the group. And everyone laughed and everyone was just like, wow. I was like, I know nothing and I just need to do it. And it was so powerful to go into a group and just admit that in all these different forms and how it resonated with people. And so all the time, little things, right? Like I'm in a store and I have to go to the bathroom and I'm like bringing out my groceries and I'm like, I kind of want to go back in. I was like, but where do I put my groceries? Do I put them in the car? And I'm like, oh, I'm so afraid to look stupid or weird. And I'm like, oh, we got to do this. We got to be willing to be more stupid. And I like backtrack myself up, stay in present time, don't stay in the mind, like stay right there. And really powerful things happen. But similar to you, right? Staying in present, staying in that like space where so much more exists, but just willing to be stupid is sort of the lesson that I talk about too. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's I'm, you know, finding like more and more tools that I can use to sort of get back to being present, you know, and the best of them all for so far for me is the one of realizing that you know what, you're not present right now.
Just easy, quick, simple.
And
Like,
it's
hey.
okay, that's just where you are now. And as soon as I say that, bang, I'm back in the present.
Yeah. It kind of reminds me of like a t-ball coach, that's like the little kids kind of like standing on the base and kind of looking around and you're like, hey, get your head in the game. Like, hey, like not trying to be like overly mean, but like our little kind of younger self is just like, la, la, la. Ooh, there's a bird. What do I think about this? Like, I'm going to eat food. And you're like, hey, come back. You're standing on the base. Like, get ready.
Yeah. So part of it is, and this is kind of, part of the wrestling with what it means to be one. If I'm one, then everybody's part of me and I'm part of them. And so, the very first book I wrote was Healing Ourself, Healing the World. And it posits that when we're healing ourselves, we are healing the world. And it talks about, different things we can do. And but on a more, I don't know, visible basis, it's like, well, I haven't quite made sense out of all of that yet. If I heal myself, how do I recognize that healing the world, and does it really do that, or am I just kidding myself?
Ooh. Like if you're just kidding yourself, if you're healing yourself, does it work? Does the world get healed fully in return?
That's kind of incrementally the world, sort of my view of the world changes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's not so much that the behavior of people changes as much as my understanding of what's going on is changing.
Yeah.
So like what I see now is I see, I guess in the way in which, like, I'm one with the world, is I see that what everybody's doing is they're doing the best they can to try to maximize their experience of love, joy, and happiness and peace. And everybody's shooting for the same goal, and everybody has a different idea about what's going to work for them in that quest. But now I see the world as everybody's on the same quest. And everybody's got a different idea. So that's a lot different than how I used to see the world. So in that way, I see like, oh, okay, I am the same as everybody. Everybody, I am that. I am that quest to experience, peace beyond understanding, and everlasting joy, and love that knows no bounds. And
This is one of the made up words again while you're talking, but it's almost like I call it like a soul hello. Like when you're on your journey and you're holding that presence, that frequency in yourself, it's like you hold that energy wherever you go. And by sharing it with other people, right? It's like a lighthouse in a way. And when someone else is struggling with being their own lighthouse or holding that frequency, and they sort of stand in the energy, it's like they're not necessarily absorbing it, but there's a level of like, oh wow, in the same way, right, that the sun and the flower kind of absorb, and that's the reaction together, that alchemical reaction. And so it reminds me of like, by healing yourself, by holding that frequency, it sends people a soul hello, because if people didn't have that in themselves, they wouldn't be able to see it, right? They
right,
wouldn't.
exactly.
Right. So
Yeah.
it's like they get to match that energy and they amplify it. And all of a sudden it becomes like this little grid that we're building of all these different lighthouses shining light in different places. And then it's like a concert if everyone turns their cell phone on, right? The whole space starts lighting up, but it's like everyone's got to be kind of aware but amplified. But yeah, everyone's got it. Otherwise they wouldn't see it, right?
Exactly. You know, I'm in Toastmasters because I like to speak, and and they have a contest that has, I don't know, 5 levels or something, and I'm in the 3rd level, but the my speech is acceptance is healing, and talking about, you know, how to make that practical, physically, psychologically, and politically, and so I'm trying to, you know, resonate that light in other people, you know, and
Mhm.
in whatever opportunities I can find.
Mm. When you're doing speeches, do you call in the angels around you into the space?
No, I haven't been. I've just been. I ask them. I call them in when I'm putting the speech together.
Okay. Okay.
So I say, okay, you know, what's the title of the speech that I'm supposed to give? And they tell me, and I say, okay, now what's the speech? You know?
Ah, okay.
And then we figure it out and stuff, and then um, through iterations, it's like as my clarity grows, that, you know, I'll make small changes in the speech. Like one of the changes I'm going to make in the self-esteem part of the speeches is that try and experiment with me. Ask yourself, tell yourself this, and afterwards, if you want to, and I'd appreciate it, tell me what you experienced. And what the phrase that you tell yourself is that I absolutely have the ability to achieve everything that's important to me. And listen to what your response is. Okay, afterwards, you know, now
Mhm.
afterwards, tell me if you know, share, if you're willing, share with me whatever response or non-response you got,
Hmm. I like that.
you know.
I like that a lot.
That's like the most recent change that I've added to the speech, you know.
Right? Because some people can hear the echo like underneath. Uh-huh. Uh-huh. I'm just picturing like you being in a room and like, I don't know if you do like the different angels. I learned that some of them come from different directions. So in the room space, I'll sort of imagine like a quadrant of 4, like around to amplify the field a little bit too, to like bring certain things in. And I haven't thought about like when I'm writing something, I put them in a room, but I don't help them have them with particular tasks. So I'm like, oh, okay, this is fun. I can bring them in on tasks. And I'm just like more than just a room. So yeah, I'm taking that in too. Around like, okay, interesting. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I had something in my mind and it just left. Oh well. the oh well. So yeah, it's been nice with my, oh, I know. Um, this is like a really weird thing, and I really want your take on it. So, when I'm in the audience and somebody's speaking,
Mhm.
and I want to ask a question, it doesn't seem to matter how many people are wanting to get called on. I always get called on, and the most amazing of that was uh, I went out to Palm Springs, listened to Shirley MacLaine give a talk, and there were probably somewhere between 5,000 and 10,000 people. I mean, it was you know, it was a, you know, a theater, right? You know, it's a big place, and I was up in the nosebleed seats, and I had my hand up, and there's this energy that's like really strong in these circumstances, and it was really strong there. It was so strong, and I wasn't doing anything other than just in the background with my hand up, right?
Mhm.
People from like 30, 40 rows away were saying, call on him, pointing at me.
Mhm.
And then I
Mhm.
asked the question, I said about, you know, would you be open to, like, you know, helping me connect? You've got a lot of connections with influential people, you know, would you be open to, you know, introducing me to where I might be able to help them accept their wholeness and have it reflected in their leadership and stuff? And she was like, no. And like, and, you know, and went on to someone else and just left as fast as she could.
Mm.
But it was interesting to me. That part isn't what fascinates me so much. What fascinates me is that there's this energy when I want to ask a question,
Yeah.
and it has made no difference how large or small the audience is. Always, and I mean, and it's like powerful, right? I mean, there's people that, I don't know these people, right? From like, far away
Mhm. Mhm.
are just like, call on him.
Hmm.
And it's like, okay, so what's your take on that?
Yeah. I mean, this is how I would read it. And so this is my kind of vision and how I think other people feel into energies. So, like, I can see energy around a lot of people, auric fields, energetic fields, things like that, different colors, different energies. A lot of people can feel them. A lot of people have clear sentience or clear seeing, right? So many people, empaths, sensitivity, things like that.
Right.
So I think sometimes when people are running a really high frequency, people can sense it or feel it. There's almost like there's warmth some people feel, or they'll feel a tingling, or it'll be like when you're standing in line and you can feel someone's frequency and you kind of turn around and look at them. And so I imagine in that sort of place, if your frequency is really big, your purpose, right? That energy is really big, people can sense it and they'll be like, I don't know, there's something about this person. Or like, I don't know, they looked familiar. You'll hear that a lot. A person looked familiar, like they reminded me of someone. Or, and what that is it's the soul kind of tickling the other person around like connection. And a lot of people are really good as they evolve at becoming more telepathic, at reading the bigger energies and understanding things. You start connecting into the spiritual energetic grid that exists at a higher frequency here. And so if you have people, right, at a thing when you're raising your hands, especially if you're confident, right, around that, and people kind of turn and they're like, oh, this person, they can feel it, they can sense it. They're sort of being part of that frequency. Your frequency draws other people in a way. And so you might see people call on you. You might see, because I'm imagining if I was sitting there seeing your energy field, it's probably pouring out energy in a way. So people probably feel you like a light bulb. They might not see you like a light bulb, but they might feel you
Yeah.
in that way. And the speakers might feel it too. And who knows, she might have been asking for a growth period, or what I call like an experience where someone says something, right? And you shut down or you have a reaction. And so your soul and her soul are both working on something together. So there's that contract or agreement around like, hey, I'm working on my havingness for letting myself have this. And she's like, cool. I'm working on not shutting down when people like don't give me what I want. And you're like, cool, on a higher spiritual plane, let's work together. And some audience members are like, yeah, and we'll point at you and we'll do this. Not that everything has to be scripted in a way, but I think there's potential in that kind of stuff around what we're learning. And so I would probably read it as just like, yeah, that person's field is really bright. And so there's clairsentience. People are able to feel into those energies. And yeah, they might pick you. They might absolutely pick you. I have something similar. I went into jury duty like a few weeks ago and I was just like, oh my God, like I always get picked. I know I'm going to have to get picked. Like I almost got away with it too. They were calling everyone's number going up there and I was like, oh, I might not get picked. And like, boom, they call me up there, right? The same sort of thing. And then you have to read off what you do. And I was like, do I say I'm a psychic medium? Like, do I just say I'm a therapist? Feels like lying. And of course, the second I say I'm a psychic medium, they start going at questions around like, well, do you see auras? Are you going to see energy around people? Like, would that sway your judgment? And all of these questions about different
Oh,
things. And
wow.
I just said, I believe everyone's a soul. I believe everyone is psychic. I believe everyone in this room can feel in bigger energies. I can just see them. Man, 15 minutes later, they kicked me right out of there. I was like, yep. And the other people that got kicked out, they stood next to me and they were like, so is he guilty in the elevator? And I was, yeah, he is. So it's just really, they were like, I knew it. I totally knew it. That's why I said that. And so it's just hilarious that everyone could feel, right, some of these energies, but similar to you, right? I get the called on energy, but it's like, okay, Like, I guess I have to be the one to speak the thing, right? But I hear you, I feel you, and yeah, yeah, yeah.
So as I was leaving that auditorium with Shirley MacLaine, somebody came up and said, are you some sort of in a group, or are you in that? No, I said, no, I'm just a guy.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Oh man, maybe we should put like the havingness out there that you just keep asking, like every event you go to. If you get picked, you raise your hand and you ask and you put out the soul hello. Like, even if the person on stage is a no, can there be someone in the audience that's like, yes, I do? I'm like, we should blow that up a little bit. That person's just in the audience, maybe.
Well, but honestly, so my best friend has access to all kinds of people, including the governor and all kind of, that's Gavin Newsom in California, right?
Mhm.
And and um, but my havingness, I guess, or I'm going to understand that as worthiness. Is that okay? Wait,
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
my sort of worthiness isn't to a point where it uh, inspires that behavior in him to put me together with his connections. I mean, he has good relationships with billionaires who fund all kinds of uh, you know beneficial projects and stuff,
Yeah.
but it isn't really like it's not quite, it's sort of like the energy isn't there for him to introduce me at this point, it doesn't seem.
It also seems like some people that maybe have that many resources all have to go through their own spiritual awakening process, right? Of realizing they need that, they want that. I imagine when you're at that level, it's probably so scary around who do you trust to really hold
Right, and
energetically.
that's one of the things is that these guys trust my friend because I mean,
Yeah.
he's my best friend. I mean, if there was ever a person in the world who's trustworthy, it's him.
Ooh.
I mean, I wrote a recommendation for him, and I said, I mean, he is so accepting and listening that people from mentally disabled to billionaire philanthropists all trust and open up to him.
Yeah. Do you just have to say at like a beautiful, loving frequency, like I'm ready, and just 100% be there? Like, I'm ready.
Yeah, so
I'm
that's what
ready.
I can't say right now. I can't say that I'm ready and I'm 100%.
Ah, okay. Okay. So maybe that's the magic that happens is maybe,
I've got to work on my deserving.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Of like, I'm ready. I'm
Yeah.
here and I'm ready. And perhaps in some ways it's already happened on a nonlinear time space too. Of like, perhaps it's already happening. Perhaps it's happening right now and I am ready.
Yeah, I got some work to do.
Yeah.
I mean the as you're saying that, the resistance that comes up in me is palpable.
Yeah. 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 Is it in brain? Is it in heart? Is it in gut?
Right? It's I just in my heart, I guess, really.
It's in heart. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So in that moment, the only reason I have a sense that you're not ready is that it's just fully being aware of who you really are. Because if it's in the heart, if it's in the heart chakra, that's the true knowing of the self. And so if the rest of you, if the power center, right? Because gut is trust, mind doesn't make sense. So you got both of those on board. You got 2 out of 3. But if the heart, right, is where it lands, it's like, okay, the reason I'm not ready is I haven't fully recognized who I am yet. And that's beautiful around you just coming home to who you really are.
Well,
Just
I've been consciously working on that forever.
yeah. Yeah, yeah. Maybe there's an even bigger home behind the home.
So okay, so here's the next, even further out than the last further out
Yeah.
is that my understanding is that um, as part of God, I chose to limit my um, experience of being one in favor of creating duality so that I could experience my qualities differently.
Mm-hmm.
And that I'm now working at trying to undo that and go back to my original state as being being one and one with God.
Yeah. 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 I think that sounds like an amazing soul plan.
So because the sort of like the whole pain of duality is like more than I really want to participate with anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's interesting, like the 3D, 5D thing that I talked about too. The theory on the 5D is a lot of that duality disappears.
Yeah.
Like it talks about that, like really tense plane within ourselves. They talk about how the earth is detoxing that right now. And so we're all detoxing it out of ourselves in a way. And so I have hope. I have a lot of hope, as I'm sure you do too. That
Well, yeah.
like,
Yeah. I
yeah.
mean, the light that, a rabbi told me this one thing and I've loved it. He says, if you have a dark room and a room full of light, and you open the door between the two rooms, the light goes into the dark room. The darkness doesn't go into the light room.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Light is stronger.
Yeah.
And so as long as there's any light at all, it will ultimately win out.
Hmm. Maybe that's the most practical thing on this podcast then so far.
Maybe. Yeah. Yeah. Um, well, I've gotten a lot. Thank you. Thank you. I don't know if you can see, I cried through most of it.
Oh,
That's a good thing. Those are good tears.
oh, I know I've been feeling into it with you, all the work you're doing, all the things you're healing, all the people you've supported. I can see a bunch of different, you got a stadium of guides behind you cheering you on. I don't think this is your first rodeo trying to be a lighthouse in a place where that technology has not occurred for a lot of people yet. So perhaps,
Yeah.
do you have people on that talk about past lives and things like that too?
I would like to. I had one lady who did. Yeah, she was great. I loved her.
It'd be interesting because sometimes, like reclaiming, like the heart reclaiming of who we are, it's like when we see the whole chapter, it's like every chapter in the book of the soul around, and that's the perspective of having more than one life in a way. But
Well, I mean, I know that like from a past life that I misused my powers, or I felt I did anyway, and
uh,
so I've always been very wary of that,
yeah.
and and I went to my friend the rabbi, and I started asking questions, and I said, where's the line between accepting the magnificence that you are and the power and the wisdom and the strength that you are, so that you can, so that you can use it, and being arrogant and and putting other people down and stuff and stuff. And he said, well, he said he said, if people end up being better off, you're doing the right thing. That's his
Mm.
answer. Which I thought that was great, because I mean, part of me was uh, like in my speech, I talk about the fact that, I've really developed the ability to, pull wisdom out of the universe and put it into words and books and ideas that people can understand. And that's, and I've really cultivated that ability to a very high level. And I'm working on, continuing to build it and stuff. But it was only when I understood that saying that doesn't make me an egomaniac. Saying that is beneficial to people, and so I'm willing to take ownership of it and share it because I believe it's beneficial to people. But for a long time, I didn't want to claim my power for fear that I would hurt people with it, because I
Okay.
feel like I did that in past lives.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And I really don't want to do that, but denying the value I have to offer hurts people too.
Yeah. Uh-huh. Yeah. Yeah. The other side. Well, it sounds like you're doing a lot of work in so many spheres. And I hope that maybe the takeaway from all this is that you're doing everything in all. And maybe part of it is just being really, really tender and doing a little bit less, staying with all the wisdom, all the teachers, all the guides, because man, if you're ready, right? If you decide like I'm ready, it sounds like you've got everything into place. You've got the blueprints. They'll come from the guides. It's just getting the heart ready. And whether it's a past life thing or whether it's a this life thing, whatever it is, um, yeah, I'll be chanting with you on the other side, reminders of like, you're ready. You're ready. You're ready. It's coming. You're ready.
Yeah, this has been really helpful at illuminating that aspect of things. Really helpful. Thank you.
Ooh, we need people. We have so many
I know. I
amazing
always tell people, I
people. I'm
says,
like,
I
ugh,
tell, I tell people, tell your story. I says, there are people that will hear wisdom from you that won't hear it from anybody else. If you don't share your wisdom, these people will never get it. You're the only one that can reach some people, and it's like,
yeah, exactly.
I try,
Exactly.
try to encourage people.
Right. Everyone's a teacher for someone else. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh man. Well, Scott, I'm sending you a bunch of love, a lot of soul hellos through the ethers as you rise. All these projects, I want them to happen. So I'm going to keep sending soul hellos of like, give Steve the money. Give us
Well,
all the money. We can do good things. Oh,
well,
wait, Scott. Did I just say Steve? I meant Scott. That was hilarious.
yeah,
Who's
it,
who's
it
Steve?
happened. I don't know, but it shows up every now and then.
Sorry, Scott.
Well, you've been amazing, and what will you share with the audience? Like, I mean, if they can get half as much benefit working with you as I did, then they should really contact you. And so, how would they do that?
I'm a simple human. I have a website. It's just soulessencepsychotherapy.com. All the blogs, all the podcasts, all the things. I have an Instagram, but I just ignore it because I'm not an online human. I wish I was the person who made content, but I'm like you. I write the blogs, I channel the things, I do a lot of that sweet alone time. But Soul Essence Psychotherapy, it's the landing page of all the things that I do. And so I work with a lot of folks in Colorado, but I do psychic root medicine work for people all over the world. Yeah.
That's awesome. You're awesome. So,
Yeah.
once again, to the listeners, if my experience is any indicator, you'd be well served by getting in touch.
Thank you.
So, all right. So, any parting comments before we say goodbye?
I don't think so. I'm just sitting with it in you. There's a transmission happening. So I'm just breathing with you.
Okay.
Grateful for you. I'm gonna figure out who Steve is at some point. I'm like, who's Steve? Clearly, I'm sending him to get some money too. Let me know if a Steve comes in mind the next few days because I just sent him a soul hello that he's doing good things in the world. Loves it.
Oh yeah. Okay. Well, I think we'll call that good then.
Okay.